Hey guys, it's Tommy with a meta-analysis because it's been so long. I'm using the recent nationals, so like UK Nats, Germany Nats, Italian nationals. Although these events have not the biggest player base, some of them are like half of what our YCS is. UK Nats is shy under 900 players. I do think it's interesting to see just how the meta evolves with them. I also see a lot of counters winning these events. Even with our last YCS, we just see a Mystic Mind deck win with 6 dimension barriers in the main. So I think like those cards get a lot stronger with Top Cut because chances are you're not going to play against a deck like Eldlich or just like a random counter that you weren't prepared for, like Sky Striker. You can play to the strength that you're going to probably see in Top Cut one Sword Soul or Punk, you're probably most likely to play against that deck, and I think those two decks have a lot of similar qualities. Um, Obviously, Sword Soul you play around cards like Nibiru differently, but because you don't have like that Omni Negate unless you long Yon into Baron. But I do think they're very similar. Another difference is one's 40 cards usually, probably max 45 with the Sword Soul list, but Punk can include a ton of hand traps, even though they're still restricted because they want to see their E-Telly. Um, and I just think it's interesting, like the contrast between the decks. Like, Sword Soul never plays Prosperity anymore, even though they could. They would just be missing out on the one draw or the new Broken Synchro, which is also really good in the mirror. So that's why they don't play it. But then a Punk deck can play it, even though they have like the constriction of their Magician Souls not getting as much value. I think they're pretty similar decks. Right now, even based on performance, we see like them performing pretty evenly. Punk can play through a dimensional barrier better with its link engine, but it still hits pretty heavy. Um, and then one interesting thing about this Nationals is it had 20 Despia on Top Cut. I think Despia is like the underdog deck right now since it won 2 YCSs back to back, and then everyone prepared for it. Everyone's got D barriers. Even anti spell I saw a lot of at the last YCS, which is literally just game versus deck. So I'm not surprised that it would like um, take advantage of that and do so well at this nationals. It's also a structure deck, so that might have had something to do with it, but I doubt it. I think that Despia just probably wasn't prepared for enough, and then it took advantage of just like the sheer power it has. And then we see like 7 Floowandereeze, very interesting. Despia is okay playing versus it, right? They can kind of play through Dimension Shifter, although it still really hurts a lot. It's still an Exodia piece, right? Or all 5 Exodia pieces in a lot of circumstances. And then going on to this Floowandereeze list, we see cards like Mystic Mine, Dark Ruler, Harpy's Feather Duster, Dimension Shifter. So a lot of going second cards with also the 3 Floodgate Harpy Trap. I think it's interesting just because someone like me, so Andres won that tournament with 0 hand traps, and then I just thought maybe it is possible to do this, to not playing like going second cards besides like something as powerful as Super Poly. So I played a 40 card list of the Predaplant Despia last YCS with just 3 Super Poly, no hand traps. And honestly, I feel like I could never do that again. It just feels so weak, and watching your opponent play is just like one of the worst things. Nibiru is like a card that's entered the format again when I think even at the last YCS it was really good, but most people didn't play it. So it's not a surprise to me that like counter decks, because obviously if you draw Nibiru versus Floowandereeze, for the most part it's dead, right? And then if you are playing against a counter deck that's like maining Dimensional Barrier, I've even seen Sword Soul main Dimensional Barrier now, or just some Floodgates. You're not going to get hit by that. So that's 3 dead cards on the main side. Yeah, it can play through a lot. I also think Dark Ruler is just so powerful. And then when we think about like the Punk matchup, they're going to be able to get their Hulk. So if my Prosperity goes off, because I also, I mean, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but like there are people that won't negate your Prosperity with Baron, or like even Desires, I would see people not negate it. But with Prosperity, it happens way more because they're thinking that they'll just negate whatever they search. So, and then a lot of the time, I feel like they wouldn't negate Duality, right? Even if it's correct. So, Floowandereeze can take advantage of that, get to the Dark Ruler, and then even though they can't use their extra deck because of Scythe, Dark Ruler's still so powerful, right? Versus that deck. Because if you're not using your extra deck, then it doesn't matter. And we see 3 Zeus and stuff, so this extra deck's a little wild. It's also cool to see that he cited 3 MST. I think that's crazy. Why wouldn't it be better than Cosmic? But I think it probably didn't matter just because, like, the Floowandereeze do what Floowandereeze do. It's anti-meta deck, stuns your opponent, you have Barrier Statue, you have all these going first floodgates, so obviously your hands could be situational, like if you're drawing Mystic Mind Dark Ruler going first, you better hope that you can prevent them from killing you, so you can actually get value off those cards. I think Mystic Mind's extremely strong, we'll see it on a lot of these lists, especially with the Mystic Mind Sky Striker deck winning last tournament. So it's pretty cool. Now we have the German Nationals. I see 18 Punk, 17 Swordsoul. So that's kind of like what I was talking about with these charts. We'll see like a lot of similars. Now this one's the biggest difference with like 8. But these decks, I think, even though like these aren't the best representation for what would happen in American Nats, I still think it's like pretty likely that when you're in top cut, you're going to be playing against Punk and Swordsoul more than, like, say, Eldlich. So if your deck gets countered by Eldlich, all you have to do is get through Swiss. Then you'll have all these cards catered to just, like, Punk Swordsoul, destroying them, like Nibiru. I know a lot of people might not think Nibiru is that strong versus Swordsoul, but I definitely don't think most people play the deck that conservative with playing around Nibiru. Like a Cheek Shot Blackout Pass. They're usually just trying to get all the value they can. However, the Nibiru is going to be dead versus the counter decks, like I mentioned. And then we see 8 Despia, so even though that's an underdog deck that I was talking about, people still might have been prepared for it, right? 5 Floowandereeze, 3 Drytron, 3 Dragon Link, 2 Sky Striker, and then I think this is the chart with the most, like, well, equal amount of like random other decks. We see Sun Avalon, which got second in UK Nats. But when we see what won, it was Punk. I don't think there's a surprise there just because Punk is just so powerful. Like I could see it winning our Nats. I do think it's really interesting that we haven't seen Swordsoul win in so long. When I talk to people, they think that deck is so broken. Even when I play it, I feel like it's so broken, but just doesn't seem like it's doing anything crazy enough to win the event. Like obviously Calamity is just game, right? If it resolves. So it's interesting he went towards that build and not like the Dagda Scythe one. He plays, you know, the XYZs, but those don't really help versus D-Barrier because how are you going to make the rank 8? The Theorons help a little bit. A lot of people are going away from Theorons for Punk. I want to see... it's unfortunate that it doesn't say how many were actually Theron. But yeah, that's definitely, like, faded out. When we see how many hand traps he had 4. 3 talents, 3 droplets. So, I think it's cool to see that he's not playing Nib in the main. And then he went towards... just like broken going second cards. I mean, I think droplets is really strong, especially how people are doing the combo where you could actually like normal summon a monster and droplet the Hulk before it activates. So I definitely think Talents is broken. We see a lot of Prosperity. It's interesting that Swordsoul aren't playing Prosperity, but I think I talked about that. Sorry, I did this video twice. So I don't know like everything I've mentioned and I haven't mentioned, but yeah. I mean, this is pretty Theron centric. And then I think it's interesting that he doesn't run the adventure package. So obviously you're going to run 3 at Zayaman. The adventure package is way better. Extender wise, Omni negate wise, I think, but obviously if you're playing so many Theorons, you're always going to have that Omni Negate live. The restriction is what sucks, the normal monster. So if you draw a Zayaman, and I mean, he plays so many ways to get there, right? Even through special summoning. So it also is like when you're playing not that many going second cards where you already have 10. Like if he adds the adventure package, he's at 51. I'm sure we would have to add 9 more hand traps, right? And then we're just going to brick more. But I do think this list is cool. I've definitely seen this list more on DB, but then when I see real life matches, I don't see this. Like at the luxury tournament, I didn't see much of this. It was usually the Scythe Dagda line, which I think is good. I still think D-Barrier is powerful for versus deck. He has no D-Barrier in his side. His side is also just like all going second. So he definitely, I would love to test this deck just to see how strong it is going first, just because for him to have that much faith in his side being 15 going second cards, or 14 going second cards, 1 card for time, definitely means that this deck should win going first all the time, right? Because I doubt he sides anything in besides like a TC. Now we have the UK Nats. Probably the one I was most excited to see what happened. It's got like people like Raph in it, right? 18 Punk, 10 Swordsoul, 8 Branded, 5 Eldlich, 4 Floowandereeze, 4 Drytron, 3 Dragon Link. It's interesting they put Branded there. But yeah, that many Punk and Swordsoul. I'm not surprised Drytron won this event just because it's such a powerful deck. And then Sun Avalon is just one of those random decks. But I mean, if he went first every time, it's like it's an unbeatable combo for the most part, besides what we saw in the finals. But at the same time, that's why I like decks like Drytron and Salad a lot, because if Droplets is the best card in the game, I think those are the 2 best decks to utilize Droplets. Just being that they're like they have so many graveyard effects, right? With Swordsoul, you could say that you can, but it's really costly in a deck like that when you're like, you have to decide if you want to keep your Moya alive, your Longyan alive, and then you have to hope that you drew like a Shuna. Because, I mean, Vishuda's not that strong with that, because you're more than likely going to have to make a play. Same with that Hara, it doesn't really do anything in the grave. I'm surprised Punk didn't make it to the finals, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I would love to see more of the Punk list from that tournament. So for the winner, we see Mystic Mine again. It's a really powerful card. I hope I see it get banned now that it's like actually demonstrated just how overpowered it can be going second. We see the Vanity's Ruler, so not doing the Dagda build. Vanity's Ruler is just a barrier statue. It's pretty broken, I think. But he has the 3 Dark Rulers on the side. Like I said, that card's really good right now. Interesting, he plays Banshee and Zombie World, so that would be good for the Floowandereeze matchup, right? And then, what else can I say about this? I mean, 2 Ben 10 makes the combo so much easier. This deck really got such a boost, but I also think it's just like so underrepresented just because, I don't know, like this deck obviously has the potential to win to me. I mean, your Drytrons are literally like Dragon Rulers. They just come back every turn. So if you make it to your next turn, it's pretty much game over, right? And then when we saw like the 6 D-Barrier main deck, Drytron can play around D-Barrier pretty well. I mean, turns off rituals, right? But like, you can still do something. You can still like play, especially with the mine. It helps. And then he just has just the magic key in the side for going first. But we see so many going second cards on all these sides. So you want the FTK when you go first, and then hopefully your side deck gets you there. But if you win the die roll, I definitely want my deck to win if I do actually win the die roll every time, right? And that's why a powerful deck like Drytron won the tournament, because it just has such a higher ceiling than any other deck, like way higher than Swordsoul. And Punk also has way higher than Swordsoul, but Swordsoul is really consistent. Now we have the Sun Avalon deck. Now he has 3 anti-spell, so that would have been insane versus Despia. I think that's like one of the best cards for it. He's playing the Necro Synchron build with the Rose Whip. I think that's probably the best build, honestly. I could have done another update combo video with that, but I feel like people pretty much know it's less resources. The real cool thing about it is when you get your Omni Negate, if you use it on Spell or Trap and you negate it, it's basically like they're locked out of Spell or Traps, like that old Shien lock. So it's a really great combo going first, but when we talk about how his deck was built for going second, we have 3 Gamma, 3 Ash, 3 Valor, 3 Droplet, so that's 12 cards, 13 with the Nib. Out of 55, that's not that many, I don't think. So definitely think he had to win the die roll a lot. Now his side's 3 Dark Rulers, 3 Lightning Storms, 2 Nib, and then 2 Imperm, so we have a lot for the Nib. I love when I have like Imperms, Gammas, Valors, because then if I draw with Nib, it's pretty much game. Ash too a lot of the time. But I think all these lists were interesting. Just because it's like when Top Cut has such a high representation of like Punk and Swordsoul, for them not to win or not to be in the finals, you have to ask, like, why are all these counter decks, like, besides this one, why are all these counter decks like winning tournaments? Like, especially when I go back to the Mystic Mind deck, what made it such a great call? And I think it's just because like there's like these decks are so consistent, but if you're playing Evil Swarm, well, not Evil Swarm versus Dragon Rulers is a bad comparison, just because I don't think, like, I honestly think some of these decks like Floowandereeze are better counters than that deck was, but Spellbooks was an insane counter to Dragon Rulers, right? That was a 2-deck format, and now we live in the time of 7-deck formats, which is lovely, right? Well, I think that's enough I can say about just what's happening with nationals from around the world and how they'll influence the American Nats. I think it'll be interesting to see. I definitely think Top Cut's going to be majority Punk Swordsoul unless Despia has a real showing, because like I said, it's the underdog deck. If no one's siding anti-spell and all they have is the 3D barriers, Despia gets a lot better if they're not playing cards like DD Crow. Even people were playing like this, Foolish Return, before. The deck gets a lot better. I mean, the deck is broken. It's just has so many cards that counter it completely. And it can't play hand traps as well without bricking like the Punk and Swordsoul can. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate all your support. Have a good one.